Chapter 17, Section 1. Objective. Identify pros and cons of fossil fuel use. Essential question. What are fossil fuels used for, and how do they affect our environment? So think for a minute and think of what fossil fuels do we use, and how do those affect our environment? What are fossil fuels? Fossil fuels are non-renewable resources. They take millions of years to form, and they cannot form in a lifetime. They're formed from the remains of organisms that lived a long time ago. They include coal, oil, and natural gas. Coal generates almost half of the electricity in the United States. Fossil fuels supply about 90% of energy used in developed countries like the United States. What are the four main purposes of fuel? Transportation, manufacturing goods, heating and cooling buildings, generating electricity to run machines and appliances. Different fuels are used for different purposes, and it depends on cost, availability, amount of pollution it produces, and safety. How is electricity generated in a power plant? A fuel source such as coal, oil, natural gas, or nuclear energy produces heat. The heat is used to boil water to create steam. The steam under high pressure is used to spin a turbine. The turbine turns a generator that generates electricity. So here's a picture of it here. And it has the pump, it has combustion going on, the water's turning to steam, the steam turns a turbine, the turbine turns a generator, the generator produces electricity and it passes it through the wires. Nearly one half of electricity generated in the United States comes from burning coal at power plants, such as the power plant listed below. 20% comes from nuclear, 24% comes from natural gas, about 6% comes from hydroelectricity, about 1% comes from oil, 4% comes from renewable energy resources. An electrical generator converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. Here's another picture. Number 1 says burning fossil fuels releases energy in the form of heat, which is used to boil water and produce high pressure steam. The steam is directed against the blades of a turbine, which is set into motion. The turbine is connected to an electrical generator. The turbine sets the generator in motion, generating electricity. And then steam from the turbine is directed to a condenser where it cools and becomes liquid again, and it can be recycled. Some places will just constantly recycle it, and it'll go back through. And some places will release that water into the environment. It has thermal pollution because it's hotter than the environment, and it can cause some fish to die and cause algal growth. Which country consumes the most energy per person? Everything you do, from the food you eat to the clothes you wear, requires energy. People in developed countries use more energy than people in developing countries. The United States uses more energy per person than most other countries. The US uses more than 25% of its energy to transport goods and people. So even though the United States uses a lot of energy, Canada actually uses more energy than we do. So we have industrial use, transportation, commercial, and residential. How do coal, oil, and natural gas form? Formation of coal. Millions of years ago, plants in swamps died. The ocean levels rose and fell. Swamps were repeatedly covered with sediment. Sediment compressed the plant remains, and heat and pressure within Earth's crust caused coal to form. So it takes heat, pressure, and time. A long time. Formation of oil and natural gas. Tiny marine organisms died millions of years ago and accumulated at the bottom of the ocean. They were buried with sediment and heated until they became complex, energy-rich carbon molecules. These molecules migrated into porous rock formations that now contain them. What factors will affect fossil fuels in the future? Cost. Due to the increased population and industry in developing countries, fossil fuels are going to become more expensive. Other energy sources may be cheaper. Pollution is a big factor. We have air pollution, smog, acid precipitation. We have water pollution, oil spills, land pollution from fracking and oil spills. Global warming is the increased amounts of CO2 or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Employee health is a big factor. Coal miners get black lung from working in the coal mines. A lot of people get sick because of the air pollution. What are the pros and cons of fossil fuel use? Pros, they're readily available. We can get them anywhere. We can find a gas station on pretty much any corner. They're pretty cheap right now. They're really easy to find. They're extremely efficient. They're easy to transport. They generate thousands of jobs. And it's easy setup for plants and factories. Cons. Environmental degradation, pollution, global warming, oil spills. We need truckloads of reserves. After we have a hurricane, a lot of people will fill their cars up with gas, get gas for their generators, and then there's no gas to be found. A lot of trucks are out of state, filled with gas and supplies. And as soon as hurricanes have passed, then these trucks can come and refill our supplies. There's a lot of public health issues with the pollution, lung disease and asthma. It's a finite energy source. It's going to run out. The costs are rising because the demand is more than the supply. Health of coal mining workers. What about the future of oil reserves? Additional oil reserves exist under the ocean, but it is expensive to drill for oil in the deep ocean. Few large oil reserves have been discovered in the past decades. Global climate change is making Arctic seas more accessible to drilling. But unfortunately, when we're drilling in the oceans, there are oil spills in the ocean as well, and this causes a lot of marine organisms to die.